All right, what is going on, folks? Welcome back to the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel. Of course, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC. We're the best reviews wrestling and your three-time YWC channel of the year. And I'm back here. It is a Sunday night, Sunday, August the 10th of 2025. Hope you all had a good one. Hope you all had a good weekend. As we're kind of shifting here, we got a little under an hour left before, of course, we hit Monday, before we hit midnight. So yeah, hope you all had a good weekend, a good Sunday and all that. And I'm fresh off of, a couple hours ago from work. I took a nap, actually, for about an hour or so. So yeah, I'm chilling out here. And so I wanted to go ahead and do a video while I'm thinking about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video I did earlier, the short video I did earlier, where I was talking about the whole AEW thing with MVP and the supposed backstage heat that he had, and the whole thing with him and Mike Bailey, and that whole thing was overblown. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little short video. So technically this is my second video of the day, and so I want to go ahead and do this because got a little bit of breaking news, shall we say, in pro wrestling. This has been the talk of the wrestling world. This has been the talk of the IWC throughout the day. So I figured I give my thoughts on it, give my take on it, since I caught wind of this actually earlier. But again, after getting off work, I'm tired as hell, so I wanted to go ahead and, gather my thoughts and give you a full video, just giving my take on it, because this is a pretty significant deal, and it kind of ties in with things I've said about WWE throughout the year, and kind of things that we've seen with WWE, with the TKO-owned WWE throughout the year. So let's get right into it here. So it has been officially reported that Karrion Kross and his wife, Scarlett Bordeaux, are no longer with WWE. It's not a matter of them being released. It was a matter of their contracts with WWE as of today have officially expired. And basically, what the stories that we're hearing, the things that we're hearing, is that WWE has moved Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux to their alumni page on their website, and basically when that happens, usually that means that talent is no longer with the company. And again, I've seen rumblings of it throughout the day, throughout social media, and now I check, right before I did this video, I checked, the usual wrestling news sites I frequent, courtesy of Wrestling Inc. I see the story. It's like the front page story, big, bold front page story, and it is officially confirmed. Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux are no longer with WWE. And this was reported, via Wrestling, the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer, and I'm sure it's all over. Again, I'm sure it's all over, all over social media, all over the wrestling news sites, the dirt sheets, and what have you. And so, apparently, Scarlett Bordeaux earlier spoke out about the fact that the rumors, the reports are official, are confirmed, or are legit. She and her husband are no longer with the company. I've seen screenshots on social media as well of Karrion Kross, basically posting various things, saying, he said something in one screenshot to the effect of, "Hey, we have to fight every day. I'll see you guys, later," or something like that. And then he basically gave out his email for bookings and stuff like that. And so it's pretty much all but confirmed. Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux are no longer with WWE. Their contracts with WWE have officially expired today. And so this comes on the heels of, weeks and weeks of speculation as of, it was reported, weeks ago, I could even say months ago, that Karrion Kross's contract was set to expire at some point this year. And everybody was saying, a number of people were saying, oh, WWE's going to resign, or they're waiting, or maybe they haven't come to an agreement yet, and this, that, and the third. And it's kind of one of those things that WWE's been known for doing. And so now you look at it, and all those stories have officially been basically confirmed with this news. So yeah, so this is a pretty significant deal. So this really comes as no surprise to me personally. This might come as a shock to some people. This really doesn't come as a surprise to me, because if you think about the landscape of WWE right now, in this TKO era, if you will, of WWE, this really should not be a surprise to anybody, because if you think about it, they've been ejecting talents, they've been releasing talents up and down the card, up and down the roster. They've had multiple instances of releasing numerous talents at the same time, which of course people have called it budget cuts. They had a budget, they had a list of names that they released back in earlier this year, I think around February, March, around the springtime, and then they did it again for a second time a couple months later, around late April going into May. So we've seen multiple budget cuts this year, multiple occasions of wrestlers, not being re-signed or re-upped on their deals. The most famous case of this, of course, was the R-Truth situation, which they received major backlash for. They received major backlash for the fact that R-Truth, they ended up letting go of R-Truth, or he didn't re-sign, or they didn't re-sign him. Same thing with The Miz. There was a report that The Miz didn't re-sign, or wasn't going to be re-signed when his contract expires. And obviously, with the R-Truth thing, they received such backlash that they ended up bringing it back later. And so, that was... And then, what are they doing with him now? He's fucking doing segments with John Cena. And so it's like, what was the point? What was the point? They tried to repackage him or rebrand him as Ron Killings, and that pretty much went nowhere. So it's like, it's one of those things where, what was even the point of that? And so, we've seen this throughout the year. We've seen this throughout the year. When it comes to WWE, when it comes to releasing talents up and down the card, releasing, employees up and down the card. So it should not come as a surprise to anyone that this happened here. The only real thing that I will say is that if there is anybody, in terms of the releases, in terms of who WWE dropped the ball with, because they dropped the ball with a lot of people over the years. I mean, I could cite a whole bunch of names in just the last 10 years alone who WWE dropped the ball with, much less the last, 5 years, even the last year, since the beginning of this year. WWE has dropped the ball immensely with fucking a number of guys, a number of talents, a number of men and women on the roster. In terms of them as a character, in terms of them as a wrestler, in terms of storylines that could have been had, matches that could have been had. WWE's dropped the ball on a number of occasions this year. That is undisputable. That is unarguable. WWE, and this is, a lot of people have said this, WWE's dropped the ball with a lot of people. But if there's one person that WWE has dropped the ball with probably more than anybody this year, it would be somebody like Karrion Kross. Because think about just how over this guy was. He was white hot for the majority of this year, specifically after WrestleMania 41. After that scathing work shoot promo that he cut after WrestleMania 41, which I don't think that they aired that. I don't know if they aired it on their show, but I remember when that first happened, and that reaction, the reaction to it, and people were looking at that and going, "Wow, man, WWE needs to push this guy." If you don't remember, like, there was a scathing promo from Karrion Kross where he was seemingly out of character. He went out of character and he basically cut this work shoot promo. I think it was on like the YouTube or his YouTube page or something. I don't know where this was uploaded originally, but I seen it on YouTube. And just him basically going off script, or going, again, out of character, and basically saying, hey, citing his frustrations with him and how he's being booked, frustrations with him and how he's been handled creatively by WWE since he returned, basically citing, you guys mishandled me when I was here before, then I left and you brought me back and you haven't done shit with me, or so on and so forth, citing, he cited, of course, AJ Styles, or Alan, because Alan is AJ Styles' real name, basically saying, you put this guy on the card for WrestleMania, but I wasn't on the card for WrestleMania. WrestleMania was in my hometown this year, so on and so forth. Of course, WrestleMania was in Las Vegas. That's, of course, Karrion Kross's backyard. I've been in the business for years, and you can't even put me on the WrestleMania card when it's in my hometown, and so on and so forth. And he just, again, cut the scathing promo, just scathing work shoot promo. Went completely off script, out of character promo. And right immediately after that, the reaction was everybody fucking got behind Karrion Kross. Like, he was immediately over after that. And everybody was saying, everybody online, everybody on social media was saying, WWE needs to capitalize on this. They need to push this guy. They need to push this guy to the next level. And what happened afterwards? How did WWE follow up on this? By not doing a damn thing. They had a brief encounter with him and AJ Styles because, again, AJ Styles was more so the focal point of his tirade in that work shoot promo. They had a brief thing with him and AJ. And then they had, of course, Karrion Kross. I think they had like a thing with him in the Judgment Day, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me if, again, I'm kind of, because I don't follow WWE storylines as closely now as I've done. I've had, I don't follow WWE storylines as closely as I used to. So, if I leave something out or I get something incorrect, my bad. Correct me if I'm wrong. But and then of course Karrion Kross had his own faction. They gave this guy his own faction. I don't know if that was, and then. He had a faction with him and Scarlett, of course, his wife, and then with what was that team's name? Authors of Pain, and then their manager, and then those guys got cut. And I think the first round of budget cuts back in February or March, and then Karrion, ended up being basically a solo act. And then again, they had a little brief thing with him and AJ. I think they had a brief thing with him in the Judgment Day, and then after that, they took him off TV. They took this guy off TV, white hot as he was. Yeah, literally fans chanting his name. People chanting for Karrion Kross. People online saying, you need to put Karrion Kross on TV. You need to push this guy to the next level. He needs to be a main event guy. He needs to be in the world title conversation. Yeah, literally had people telling you this. And WWE did not listen. They did not listen because you know why? Because they don't care. Because he did not factor into their plans creatively. He did not factor into Triple H or Paul Levesque's plans creatively. He did not factor into anybody, higher up in WWE's creative plans. So they had no use for him. He had a brief little thing with AJ. He had a brief little thing with the Judgment Day. Took him off TV for weeks, months. And then more recently he had this thing with Sami Zayn. And then that was it. That was it. Just completely dropping the ball with the guy. As white hot as he was. As over as he was. Like, how is that conceivable? You have fans literally telling you, push this guy. We want to see more of this guy. Feature him on TV. Put him in a big storyline. Get behind him. Push him. Book him to the next level. He deserves a push. He needs a push. Push him to the next level. Put him in the world title conversation. Do something with him. You literally have people telling you what they want to see. And you do the exact opposite. It's the easiest thing in the world, the simplest thing in the world. Literally, the easiest thing in the world for WWE to do. Push the guy's fucking over. He's the hot act. You fucking push him. Simplest thing in the world, easiest thing in the world. And WWE fumbled that. WWE fumbled this guy immensely. And I'm not just talking about this situation. I'm talking about throughout the entirety of this guy's career. Minus the time in NXT when he was, moderately successful. On the main roster, complete fucking bust. Both before and after he returned. And now you see the result. And it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that somebody the talent level of a Karrion Kross, I don't care where, and I'm not even the hugest Karrion Kross fan, but I see the talent in that guy. I see the potential in that guy. He is as much of an underused, as much of an underrated talent as anybody. He could have been something significant. He could be in the spot that fucking Seth Rollins is in now. He could be in the spot that freaking Gunther, is in now. He could easily be in that role. He has this, he has the appeal, he has the ability, he had the fan support. How could you not push somebody? How could you drop the ball on somebody like that? How could you fumble something like that? That's WWE for you. That's WWE for you. If the machine doesn't, if WWE sees no value in you, you're not getting pushed. If the machine doesn't get behind you, you're not doing anything. It's as simple as that. That's how WWE, that's how they've always been, dating back to the time when Vince McMahon owned the company. That's how they've always been, folks. And it's not going to change. It's not going to be any different now that TKO owns WWE. even with Triple H running it. Oh, he was the brains behind NXT. Oh, he made NXT. He got these NXT guys to where they were. And now look what he's doing. Now look what he's doing as head of creative in WWE. Now look what Paul Levesque's doing. Fumbling people left and right. He's creatively bankrupt. WWE is creatively bankrupt. And for them to fumble and mishandle and drop the ball with somebody like Karrion Kross, as over as he was this year, is astonishing. And it's just a testament to how bad they are how bad things are right now, how bad WWE is right now creatively. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better with this current environment of WWE, with them pushing all these ads and these sponsors and all these different things. And again, you know, they're more so focused on their fucking revenue, the money they get, the shareholders, and the sponsors, the ads that they constantly shove in people's faces. Price gouging their fucking audience, charging $40,000 for WrestleMania tickets, charging fucking thousands of dollars for really any show they do, especially the big pay-per-views, or PLEs, especially the big PLAs. Price gouging their fucking audience, fucking charging all these all fucking money out the goddamn wazoo for WrestleMania, for SummerSlam. It's fucking ridiculous. They're supposedly making all this money, you know, with the TV deals, the fucking $1 billion Netflix deal they got early this year, the $1 billion TV deals they got with NBC Universal and whoever, you know, USA Network, wherever. They had a big TV deal with Fox, you know, with SmackDown. That expired, of course, last year because Fox didn't want, Fox was disappointed with SmackDown's numbers, so they fumbled that. So they're no longer, SmackDown's no longer on Fox. They're back on USA. They're fucking going to Saudi Arabia every year. This big ass fucking, getting big money fucking, shows for that. Doing big shows in Saudi Arabia for millions of dollars and shit. That's what they care about. That's all they care about. And then at the same time, fucking cutting all these goddamn talents, fucking asking talents to take pay cuts. Roman Reigns being the biggest example. That's really shocking. That's really astonishing that they asked a guy like Roman Reigns, who had been at the top of the company for however many years now, to take a pay cut. Apparently Roman Reigns was making somewhere in the ballpark of 15-20 million. I don't know if that's like per year or that's like just the entirety of his contract, but that was a pretty head-spinning number. That was a pretty head-spinning figure. Roman Reigns making 15-20 mil. But it's expected. The guy was the face of the company for years. Like, he had this run where they held the fucking world title on him for fucking 3 years. He was undefeated for a good portion of that time. And then they wanted him, and then the report was, they want him to take a pay cut, and it's like, wow, are you serious? You want Roman Reigns to take a pay cut? And you know what? I may surprise a lot of people by saying this, because I've been one of the biggest Roman Reigns critics the last couple of years, but for them to go and try and attempt to cut the salary of a man like Roman Reigns, he does not deserve that. He deserves every bit of what he is earning. He may be part-time now, but he deserves every bit of what he's earning. So for WWE to attempt to cut Roman Reigns' salary, it's like, are you kidding me? They're doing all these fucking things, cutting people left and right, letting people out of their contracts, yet at the same time price gouging their audience. Fucking, they got Saturday night's main event every other month. All these fucking PLEs they're adding, every month, or sometimes sometimes twice a month. And all this bullshit they're doing, and they got all these ads and sponsors on their fucking shows, and clearly that's what they care about. And then you think about this story that I heard recently about TKO, WWE's, again, parent company, being $3 billion in debt, and all these things tie together. All these things make sense. It all makes sense. It all comes together. WWE is doing these things because they are so desperate. They're desperate to get out of debt. That's why they're doing them. That's why they're fucking cutting talents left and right. That's why they're asking talents to take pay cuts. That's why they're charging more for their fucking PLEs, for tickets for their shows. That's why they're doing the shit. That's why they've got sponsors up and down their fucking shows every week. For Raw, for SmackDown, for NXT, for fucking the Saturday Night's Main Event, for the PLEs. That's why they're doing it. They're desperate. They're money hungry. And they want to get out of debt. That's what it is. That's the landscape of WWE right now. But again, getting back to my main point here, for them to drop the ball with a talent like Karrion Kross is fucking astonishing. It's astonishing. Just based on everything I said, how over he was, how white hot he was coming out of, following WrestleMania 41 and that shoot promo he cut. How you drop the ball with somebody like that is beyond me. Beyond me. He deserves better than that. The dude deserves better than that. And they just completely, outside of a handful storyline, like just basically nothing. 1-2 storylines here and there that they barely followed up on. A handful of matches that they barely followed up on. And that's all the guy gets? Being as over as he was? No, because he got himself over and you didn't get him over? Is that why? I think honestly, personally, that he may have been punished after that. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, that was scripted. Oh, that shoot promo he cut was scripted, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm having second thoughts. Maybe it wasn't scripted. Maybe Karrion Kross got punished for that. That's why they took him off TV. That's why they barely featured him after that. And you think about, again, thinking about how WWE is now, and you think about just, the direction that they went with him, they barely did anything with him. We hardly ever saw him. So maybe he did get punished. And maybe that kind of factors into why they didn't re-sign him. Now, according to this report that I read via Wrestling Inc. before I did this video, I got it right here in front of me. Apparently, he was offered a contract. Now, the amount or how much they attempted to re-sign him for, or how much they offered him, or whatever, or whether or not he accepted it was that remains to be seen, or that remains unknown. But based on the fact that Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux are no longer with the company, obviously he did not re-sign with them. Obviously, he did not accept whatever offer they gave him. And good for him. Good for him. If they're not going to use him properly, then he needs to get out. And so, good on him. Good on him, good on Scarlett. They weren't doing anything with him. They weren't doing shit with him. They wasted a potential mega push he could have had. He could have made... He could have been factored in the storylines, into main event storylines. He could have been in the world title picture. He would have gotten massively... He was already massively over. It would have made all the sense in the world to push this guy. And WWE flopped. So he has every right to say, okay, you're not going to use me? Well, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to leave. He has every right to say that, to do that. Good on him. Good on him. And so it's just astonishing, But yeah, so Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, no longer with WWE. Now the question remains, where do they go from here? Where do they go from here? I'm seeing a number of people say maybe AEW takes a run at him. I could see that. I wouldn't mind that. I know AEW, people say AEW's roster is, pretty big right now. They have a stacked roster, so on and so forth, or they have a bloated roster, even though AEW's made cuts to talents, within the last year. Even this year. And you got a number of guys who are hurt, Jay White, for example, and other guys who have gotten hurt, here and there, both up and down the card in AEW. So he could certainly be a name to go to AEW. Now, would he factor immediately into, like, say, the main event picture? I don't think so. But I think over time, if AEW uses him right, he could be a big player. He could be a big-time player in AEW. I could see that. I do think he has the talent. He has the potential to do that. Do I think he's going to be immediately plugged into the main event picture? Do I think he's immediately going to be a big name? No. But over time, especially with the fallout from WWE, I think he could be something significant. And if they add Scarlett and have her be part of that package deal, kind of like what they were in WWE and even back, to an extent when they were in TNA, I could see that. I could see Tony Khan, thinking about it. I bet you he's thinking about it. I'll bet you he's considering it now. I could very well see that happening. I would not be surprised at all. I would not be shocked, and I would not be mad at all if Karrion Kross ended up in AEW. Will he? That remains to be seen. Now, another, obviously, place he could go is, of course, TNA, because, him and Scarlett were there before. They cut their teeth in TNA, from years ago. And, he was a big name. He was a big deal. He was a big deal in TNA for a good while. Both before and after he left. So, and Scarlett, too. Scarlett made a name for herself in TNA for a long time. The Smoke Show. Of course, the Smoke Show, Scarlett Bordeaux. So, I can see TNA being a big destination as well. Now, the only thing about that is TNA has this big partnership with WWE, and so I don't know if, again, he would necessarily be welcomed with open arms with, you know, with this whole with the partnership with WWE still in place with TNA. But I would not be surprised at all if he returns to TNA as well. And if not AEW or TNA, I could see him going to the independents for a time. You know, maybe a place like MLW or GCW for a while, or, you know, he could really go. He could really factor into. He could really go anywhere he wants. You know, maybe even go over to, you know, go out of the States. Maybe go to New Japan for a while. You know, I could see that. I could see him doing that too. Maybe go to Mexico for a while. Maybe you know. Well, I would say, you know, AAA, I don't know. Maybe a CMLL or maybe some other Mexican promotion. I could see he could go pretty much anywhere he wants, you know. But wherever he goes, I'm sure he's going to make the most of whatever opportunities he's given. And I'm sure wherever he goes, he's going to be treated way better than he was during his time in WWE, for both his stints in WWE in terms of the main roster. So with that being said, it's pretty much the gist of it, man. So Karrion Kross Scarlett Bordeaux, as of today, no longer with WWE. Contracts expire, and we'll see where they go from here. You know, we'll see where they go from here. I gave you kind of, you know, a few suggestions, a few of the top destinations where he might end up. But again, where he ultimately goes remains to be seen. That's entirely up to him, and that's entirely up to his wife, you know, Scarlett Bordeaux. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so WWE dropped the ball with Karrion Kross. No surprise there. They're dropping the ball. They've dropped the ball for a majority of this year with their talents, their wrestlers, and just what they're doing with their show. So it should be no surprise to anybody. This news should be no surprise to anybody. It should be no surprise to anybody, considering the state that WWE is in right now. And once more, the fact that they dropped the ball, the fact that they flopped, the fact that they mishandled and misused a talent like Karrion Kross is astonishing, and it's very telling as to where WWE is right now. So yeah, so WWE did this to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot, and they have to live with it. And so Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, we'll have to wait and see what all they do next. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for that. That is my opinion. That is my take on this whole thing. So that's pretty much all I got to say for this video. Apologies if it was long-winded, but again, when it comes to stories like this, when it comes to, you know, when I give my take on things, I can be pretty, you know, I have a lot to say. I can be pretty long-winded, and, you know, it ends up being a long video. Okay, we're almost 30 minutes into this one. So, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Those are pretty much all my thoughts. That's my full take on the whole thing with Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, no longer in WWE. We'll see where they go from here. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment. Give me your thoughts on this news. Where do you think Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux go from here? Go ahead and give me your takes, man. Go ahead and give me your thoughts in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support I can get. And with that being said, it's pretty much going to do it. So thank you for watching once again. I'll be back for more content very soon. And you're going to see it right here on the channel. And we are rapidly approaching 1,000 subscribers here on the Wrestling Otaku channel. We're now at, what, 952, 953. It's kind of fluctuated the last day. And so, yeah, we're very close, man. We're getting there. The road to 1K continues. And so if you guys can help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. But anyway, go ahead and wrap this up now. So thank you for watching once more. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, this has been the Wrestling Otaku signing off here. See you all later. I'm out. Peace.